Hello, Tribesters and our extended tribe. Today's expert-led conversation is all about sleep. This is a topic that I'm fascinated by, and World Sleep Day is coming up quickly, so that we thought it was the perfect time to highlight the importance of sleep and also educate you all on why it's foundational to all of our well-being. And to help us navigate this topic, I have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Lindsay Browning. So Dr. Browning is a chartered psychologist, author. I've actually just gotten her book and I'm reading it, and also sleep expert and the founder of the practice Trouble Sleeping. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so sleep. What was it about sleep that drove you to develop a career in this field?
Sure. Well, I've always been interested in the unknown, and back when I was first studying and learning to do this, there are two main unknowns really. There's outer space, and then there's the mind. And sleep is all about what happens to our mind when we go to sleep, and we didn't really know a lot about it at the time. So it was fascinating, and I've always been interested in dreams, and even though it's not very scientific, it's always just an interesting thing to sort of discuss your dreams or what you dreamt about. So yeah, I did my first degree was in psychology, and then I did a master's in neuroscience, and then my doctorate was specifically studying and treating insomnia.
Okay, and insomnia we'll get into in a bit, but I want to cover some of the fundamentals of sleep. So can you just talk us through just how important sleep is and why it's important?
Absolutely. So sleep is absolutely vital for so many aspects of our health and well-being. And like I said, when I first started studying sleep, we didn't have as much knowledge, and people weren't really that aware of how important it really is. But now it's fantastic that it's everywhere how important sleep is. It's related to our physical health and our mental health. So when we go to sleep, our brain doesn't switch off. It goes through a whole host of different processes that give you massive amounts of benefits. So we regulate our hormone production. It helps to regulate our mood. We give ourselves sort of protection against certain kind of illnesses, like against dementia, against certain types of cancers, heart disease, diabetes, stroke, and we build our immune system during our sleep. It's just, the list goes on. And I'm sure if you've ever had a bad night's sleep, you know how bad you feel the next day. You're not yourself, reaction times aren't quite there. And yet longer term, we do a lot of damage to ourselves by not allowing ourselves to sleep enough.
Yeah, we have children. We have two boys, and so yes, I know how a bad night's sleep can impact you. It's like those early months of motherhood. You're impacted by interrupted sleep all the time. What would constitute a good night's sleep from a technical point of view?
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends on your age as to how much sleep you kind of need. So for a working age adult, somewhere between 18 and 64, then generally speaking, the science suggests that somewhere between 7 and 9 hours a night is what you should be looking to get. But really, it's more about getting enough sleep so that you feel refreshed the next day, so that you fall asleep relatively quickly. It doesn't take you too long to fall asleep. You sleep through the night without waking up too many times for too long, and then you wake up sort of near your alarm time. And as long as you get sufficient sleep in that time and then you feel rested the next day, that's probably enough sleep for you.
So I was one of those people years ago, as this changed, that really thought I was fine on 5 hours of sleep and I could just sleep when you're dead. It's fine. And then I went through a near burnout and was exhausted all the time. And I actually developed a chronic immune issue. So it's interesting that you to highlight how sleep really does help your immune system or hinder it. So can you talk a little bit more about the science here and the connection to general well-being?
Yeah, so when we sleep, it's like the spring cleaning of our house, really. And I like to think of it like, if you ever had a busy time in your life, then you probably aren't going to concentrate on cleaning your bathroom that week because you're busy at work, so you've got loads of things to do. So you think, well, I'll clean the bathroom later, and that's fine in the short term. Not cleaning your bathroom for a few days, for a week, 2 weeks. But what about a month? Or what about 6 months? Or what about if you haven't cleaned your bathroom for a year or 2 years? This is kind of like how sleep is. So when we don't have enough sleep for one night, it's not the end of the world, because we've done lots of that sort of spring cleaning in our brain before, and we're not our best, but it's okay. But it's when we continually don't give ourselves enough sleep, or don't get enough sleep in the longer term, that these problems start to build up. And there's just so many different aspects that we consolidate learning. Like I mentioned before, things like Alzheimer's is a prime example. So when we go to sleep, we've long known that if you're not getting enough sleep, that you have a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, dementia. But we didn't really know why. And then there's some neuroimaging studies in 2019, so relatively recently, they looked at a sleeping brain, and they could see what happens. And basically, you have this thing called cerebrospinal fluid in your spine. And during the night, your spine, the channels open up, and this fluid washes across your brain and physically spring cleans, basically it washes away these things called amyloid plaques, which are sticky substances that build up and clog the brain. And it's physically spring cleaning your brain during the night. Now, if you don't have enough sleep, that's one of those things that your brain goes, oh, we really do need to repair our muscles and do our digestive enzymes, but that spring cleaning of the brain, we'll have to do that when we've got enough sleep. So in the short term, not in the world, but long term, that this buildup of amyloid plaques is linked to Alzheimer's.
So I understand it completely. I understand it completely now, because I never understood when I read about how it impacted Alzheimer's. I never understood why. And that's such a good analogy of that spring cleaning. That's a really helpful way to think about it. What would be the contributors to a bad night's sleep?
Yeah, so the number of hours. So not getting enough sleep. So you could sleep well, but you have to wake up early to do work or to see the kids, so you're not getting enough sleep. That's a bad night's sleep. Or it takes you a long time to fall asleep. And this is more where, rather than a lifestyle choice reducing the amount of sleep that you get if you're too busy or you're not prioritizing it, people who are struggling to sleep, they want to sleep, they know sleep's important, but when they lie down in bed, they can't switch their mind off, they can't fall asleep. So they're taking a long time to fall asleep, or they're sleeping a little bit, but then waking up in the middle of the night for a long time. So then when the morning comes, again, they haven't had enough sleep. But you can also get disrupted sleep, where you wake up a lot during the night. And this is sort of a bit of an in-depth issue, which we might talk about in more detail, but I could talk about it now if you like.
Yeah, perfect. Let's talk about that now.
So when we sleep, we have these things called sleep cycles, and each sleep cycle is about an hour and a half-ish. And each sleep cycle contains some light sleep, some deep sleep, and some dreaming sleep. And those different parts of sleep, they look different if you look at your brain waves, but they also have different functions. And lots of people think that, for example, deep sleep is the most important part, because it sounds good, doesn't it? Deep sleep sounds like good sleep, and light sleep is, not so good. But actually, they're both good. It's just that they're different. And we need all the different parts of sleep to be healthy. Like a plate of food, you need all the different food groups. If you just ate broccoli, you wouldn't be healthy. So like deep sleep is like broccoli. It's good for you, but you couldn't survive only on deep sleep. You need the other parts as well. Now, a full sleep cycle, which has all these different parts, is really important. But sometimes we'll wake up within the sleep cycle. And often that's because something has woken us up, because our bodies don't want us to wake up during the sleep cycle. It's like they want us to have a full sleep cycle, then we'll wake up. But sometimes we're woken up from within the sleep cycle. And that's when we have a baby that doesn't know where we are in our sleep cycle, and they just wake you up whenever. And sometimes
their sleep cycle is more important at that point than our sleep cycle.
Exactly. And sometimes you might wake up to the baby crying and you think, oh, I feel okay. Other times you feel like death. And that just depends where you were in the sleep cycle, basically. But also other things can wake you up in the night, like noises, but physical things like sleep apnea is the prime one, where people stop breathing during the night. And it's common in snorers. And what that means is, during the night, as you fall asleep, your throat basically will sort of like close up on itself, and you stop breathing, which for a minute is okay, but then your body will go, oh my goodness, our oxygen levels are depleting, we're not breathing, and it will wake you up, take a big gasp of breath, and go back to sleep again. And you might have been, in the sleep cycle, you wake up, take a big gasp of breath, go back to sleep again. You won't know that you woke up, because you won't have been awake long enough to realize. So when people have sleep apnea, their sleep cycles don't look like this. They look like this the whole night long. which means that they're not getting the quality sleep. They're not getting all the parts of sleep they need. They might wake up the next morning and say, oh, I was asleep for 8 hours. I must be healthy, but they feel exhausted. And it's because just because they were asleep for 8 hours, they weren't having the sleep cycles that they needed because they were constantly being disrupted.
So they were never getting into that deep sleep. They
into all the sleeps. It's not just deep. Yeah, okay. Deep sleep isn't. It's really important. Deep sleep isn't the best part of sleep. Lots of people think that.
But they weren't getting the flow of the whole cycle. Exactly. Okay.
And each time you wake up, you kind of start again. You don't go straight back into
whatever point you were at. Got it. Oh, that's much more clear now. Okay. Oh, okay. And so what are people getting wrong then when it comes to bad sleep?
Mm-hmm. Well, between each sleep cycle that we have, everyone wakes up really. So about every hour and a half-ish, because these last about an hour and a half, normal sleepers wake up about every hour and a half. But you only remember waking up if you're awake for long enough to be able to kind of realize that you're awake and store that memory of waking up into long-term memory storage. So the next morning, you go, oh, I woke up twice last night. So the problem happens because when we're 18, we tend to sleep through the night and we are waking up, but those awakenings are very short. So we swear, I slept through the night solidly, and we'll think that we slept in a good solid 7, 8, 9 hour block. When we start to get a bit older, we start to hit our 40s or 50s, 60s, these awakenings can start to get a bit longer, not that much longer, but long enough that you realize you're having them. And the problem then is that people will go, oh no, I've woken up. My sleep quality is rubbish now because I needed to sleep in a block and now I've woken up once or twice. Or even worse, they've got a sleep tracker and they look at it in the morning and it says, oh, you woke up 4 times last night. And I think, oh no, how terrible. I need to sleep in one solid block. You know, and honestly, I get so many calls all the time from people saying,
I'm laughing because that's my husband completely. He's so focused on his sleep right now. And then he got the tracker to make sure that he was sleeping okay. And then he realized he was waking up more. And now when he wakes up, he's like, oh, you know, it just triggers. It's a trigger. So he actually stopped wearing the sleep tracker.
That's great. Yeah. It's called orthosomnia. So orthosomnia is a word that means basically a sleeping problem caused by trying to have perfect sleep through tracking your sleep or that kind of thing. So a lot of what I do is teaching people what normal sleep looks like, because if you're trying to achieve perfection that isn't normal, then all you're going to do is start worrying about the fact that your sleep isn't perfect. And then the more you're worried about it, the less you're going to sleep. So yeah, so I deal with a lot of people who they only wake up a couple of times in the night and they only realize it, but they think that means that their sleep was poor quality and that they need to change it to sleep solidly. And to be fair, it's a bit like wrinkles. I'd love to not have wrinkles, but I'm over 40 and, you know, it's only going to get worse. The older I get, I am going to start waking up and realizing I'm awake in the night, and I'm not going to have the same sleep I had when I was 18 years old. It doesn't mean I'm broken. It's just different.